I didn't move to Denver for a fresh start. I moved because staying where I was meant bleeding in the same room over and over again. After the miscarriage and the breakup that followed, every corner of my old life felt contaminated. The apartment, the coffee shop 2 blocks down, even the parking lot outside the grocery store where we argued the last time I saw him. I packed fast. 2 duffel bags, 1 suitcase, and my drafting portfolio. That was all I took when I left Austin behind. I had no plan, just a lease I'd signed online for a 550-square-foot loft in a building called Willow Creek. It was tucked in a quieter stretch of Denver, the kind of place where people nod at you in passing but keep to themselves. Young professionals, early retirees, nobody too curious. That's what I wanted. Apartment 3C was small but clean, the floors newly redone and the windows wide enough to make the space feel larger than it was. I spent that first week nesting, hanging eucalyptus bundles, rolling out rugs, bringing life into the room 1 potted plant at a time. Earth tones, soft fabrics. I wasn't trying to forget everything. I just needed to build something new, something mine. The only neighbor I knew by name was Mrs. Dobbins, a retired librarian who lived across the hall in 3D. She had snowy white hair, walked with a slight limp, and left muffins outside my door twice a week with notes that said things like, "Oatmeal is good for the soul." I never asked her to, and she never knocked. It just became part of the rhythm. It was mid-March when the man in 3B moved in. I'd just come back from Trader Joe's juggling a bag of frozen meals in my purse when the elevator doors opened, and there he was. Athletic build, calm face, that early 30s type who probably played baseball in college and still jogs at sunrise. He wore a faded hoodie, earbuds looped around his neck. As I stepped in, he offered a quick smile and held the door open with his forearm. "You just move in?" I asked, trying to be polite. He nodded. "Yeah, Colin, 3B. Lena, across the hall." He gave a short laugh, the kind people do when they feel awkward but want to seem friendly. "Nice to meet you, Lena." That was it. No weird vibe, no red flag. If anything, I felt strangely safe. Maybe it was how quiet he seemed, how he didn't press for conversation or try to get too familiar. We saw each other a few times that month, him sitting on the stairs stretching after a run, earbuds in, me carrying up paint swatches or new throw pillows. We nodded. Occasionally traded a quick, "Hey." But then things started happening. Small things. Almost too small to matter, except they did. One morning, I found my Amazon package on the floor outside my door, box already opened. Nothing was missing, but the packing slip was folded and tucked back inside like someone had been careful. Another time, my front door mat, a simple black rectangle that said, "Home," was turned at a sharp angle, corner lifted like someone had stepped on it, twisted it. I brushed it off. Denver wines were no joke. Maybe a delivery guy had done it. Then, the lights. Late one Thursday night in April, as I was brushing my teeth, the kitchen lights flickered. Not like a bulb dying, more like a brief surge. The hallway outside buzzed faintly, then dimmed. I stepped out and looked down the corridor. That's when I heard it. Humming. A low, tuneless sound. Someone, maybe 2 doors down, walking past. Slow and rhythmic. The next day, I caught Colin outside his apartment watering a little succulent on a wooden stand. He was humming that same tune. I remember freezing, holding my keys just a second too long. "Morning," he said casually. I gave a small nod. "Morning." He tilted the pot slightly, wiped water from the edge with his thumb. "Lights flickered last night, did yours?" "Yeah," I said. "Weird, right?" He looked at me a beat longer than felt natural, then smiled. Buildings always have personality. Old wiring, maybe. These personality. That was one way to put it. That night, Mrs. Dobbins knocked. First time she ever had. She was holding a lemon bar in a wax paper bag, hands slightly shaking. "Be careful with 3B, she said softly. "Way." He reminds me of someone I knew, and not in a good, I didn't want to jump to conclusions. Everyone has quirks. Some people don't know how to make small talk. Others have weird routines. Maybe Colin was just one of those quiet types who liked his privacy. God knows I was one of them. Still, I couldn't shake the conversation with Mrs. Dobbins. Her words settled over me like a film, not quite visible, but always there. That week, things escalated. It started with my phone. At first, I thought I'd accidentally sent a text, just a single message to a contact I hadn't spoken to in months, my ex. The message just read, "You still think about it?" I stared at the screen so long I forgot to breathe. I hadn't typed that. I hadn't even opened that thread in weeks. I deleted it, chalked it up to some ghost draft glitch. But then another message went out, this time to a classmate from my design program. "I had a weird dream about you." I started locking my phone with a 12-character password and facial recognition. I changed my Apple ID. Still, the texts kept happening. Once a week, sometimes more. Always cryptic. Always weird. That's when I installed the indoor cam. It was a sleek little device the size of a deck of cards. I placed it on the bookshelf facing the front door. It ran on motion detection and fed directly to an app on my phone. I told myself it was for peace of mind. Nothing more. The first 2 weeks, nothing. Then on a Sunday afternoon in May, I scrolled through the footage and saw Colin, clear as day, walking past my door. Not once, not twice. 9 separate times between 2 hours and 4 p.m. Each time, he paused, just for a moment, just long enough to glance at the peephole. One time, he knelt, like he was examining the threshold. I replayed the clip over and over. Why? Why would anyone do that? I emailed building management. Their response was polite, sterile. "Thank you for your concern. We do not have policies preventing residents from walking in the hallway. If you feel unsafe, please contact Denver PD directly." Translation, not our problem. So I started documenting everything, dates, times, screenshots, even sound clips of the humming. I didn't know what I was going to do with it, but I needed to feel like I had some control. The night I found the figurine, I lost it. It was just there, sitting outside my door on a Tuesday morning. A small wooden carving, maybe 3 inches tall, of a woman in a long dress. Her hands clasped. No facial features. But around the neck, etched in thin white paint, was a small oval. Just like the necklace I wear every day. I stared at it for a full minute before picking it up with a napkin. Threw it straight in the trash chute. But the second one came the next week. Cracked down the center. I didn't sleep that night. I began sleeping with the lights on. Just the one above the stove, enough to cast a weak yellowish glow over the loft. It wasn't logical. It didn't solve anything. But something about the dark, the way it swallowed sound, felt unsafe. Every creak, every gust of wind outside became a threat. Colin's behavior shifted too. He stopped saying hello, stopped smiling. Instead, when we crossed paths, he'd just stare, like he was waiting for me to speak first, like he wanted to see what I'd do. It wasn't aggressive, not overtly, but it was enough to set every nerve in my body on edge. I stopped going out after dusk, started parking in the visitor lot closer to the security lights. I even carried a can of pepper spray in my coat pocket. My sister Claire offered to let me move in with her and her fiancé in Boulder. I told her I was fine. I lied. Late July, I came home to find my Wi-Fi network had been renamed. It no longer said 3C Lena Net. It now read 3BI's watching. I stood frozen in the hallway, key halfway to the lock. For a second, I thought it had to be someone else. A prank, maybe. Then I saw it. In the list of connected devices, Colin M. Watch. I stared at the name until my vision blurred. My hands shook so bad I couldn't type. I shut my phone off, turned on my heel, and drove 2 blocks to a 24-hour diner. Called Ian, a friend from my old design firm who now worked in cybersecurity. "I need help," I said. Within 24 hours, Ian came over, installed a new router, changed every password, and added a hidden motion sensor cam, this time inside the apartment, tucked on the bookshelf behind my favorite ceramic bowl. It looked like part of the decor. He didn't ask why. He didn't need to. 2 nights later, the sensor went off at 3:12 a.m. I woke up groggy, confused. The app alert showed movement detected at 3:09, continuing through 3:14. I sat up in bed, heart pounding, thumb hovering over the replay button. When the footage loaded, I stopped breathing. Colin was in my apartment. He didn't look rushed or frantic. He didn't even look concerned. He just stood behind the couch, his arms loose at his sides, staring into the hallway, like he was waiting for someone to come back. He stayed like that for 4 minutes. Then slowly, he turned and walked out through the front door. No sound, no forced entry, just gone. The next morning I was packed by 8 a.m. I didn't care about the lease. I didn't care about losing the deposit. I drove straight to Claire's in Boulder and called the police on the way. They met me there. I showed them the footage. Told them everything. The packages, the figurines, the humming, the renamed Wi-Fi, the messages I didn't send. They nodded. Took notes. One officer, a younger guy with tired eyes, leaned forward and said, "There's no sign of forced entry. Are you sure you locked the door?" I wanted to scream. Of course I locked the door. I triple-checked it every night ever since the first figurine. But without physical evidence of a break-in or a direct threat, their hands were tied. "We'll make a report," they said, for a while. "We suggest changing your locks and staying somewhere else." That was it. No arrest, no confrontation, not even a formal interview with Colin. I asked if they'd watch him. They shrugged. "It's a civil matter unless he harms you." I called the building management next. This time I didn't ask. I demanded to break the lease. I sent them the footage. They didn't argue. The apartment sat empty for the rest of the summer. Claire and her fiancé made up the guest room. I got a new phone. Ian helped wipe every trace of my old accounts. I enrolled in virtual therapy. I tried to breathe again. It took weeks before I stopped checking the door 5 times a night. Months before I could fall asleep without a podcast playing. But eventually I did. Then the box arrived. It was mid-September, a Friday. Claire was at work. I was in the kitchen making coffee, trying to decide if I had the energy to start on a freelance design proposal. The doorbell rang. I assumed it was a delivery. Claire was always ordering books. The package was plain. No name, no label, just a box small enough to fit in one hand. I knew. Before I even opened it, I knew. Inside was a third figurine, this one headless. The body was the same, slender frame, long dress, necklace painted in fine white lines. But the head had been snapped clean off and wrapped separately in tissue paper. I picked it up with trembling fingers and noticed something else. A tiny black thread tied around the neck. Hair. My hair. Claire found me in the bathroom 30 minutes later, rocking on the tile floor. She drove me to the station herself. The detective didn't look surprised when I told them. Said they'd make a note and escalate the file, but no charges. Still no proof. Colin was gone. Moved out the day after I left Willow Creek. No forwarding address. No trace. It's been 4 years. I live in Oregon now, in a rented cottage surrounded by pine trees and fog. It's peaceful, quiet. I see a trauma therapist once a week. I haven't had a panic attack in 11 months, but I still check the locks every night. Once, then again. And sometimes, when the light hits just right, I swear I see a shape standing at the edge of the tree line. Not moving, not walking, just watching. We teach people to be polite, to mind their business, to avoid confrontation. But sometimes, silence enables danger. Listen to your gut. Document everything. And most importantly, never explain away fear you feel in your bones. You don't owe anyone your comfort or your safety. Lock the door. Trust yourself. and never ignore the quiet. I moved to Missoula in October, 3 months after my dad died. It wasn't planned. Nothing about my life at that point was. After the accident, I floated. Grief doesn't feel like sadness at first. It feels like fog. Like you're watching someone else wear your body, nod through conversations, answer emails you don't remember reading. My dad was the only person I really talked to after my mom passed 5 years ago. He was a quiet man, thoughtful, the kind who repaired things instead of replacing them. He called every Sunday, no matter what. Then a drunk driver ended him. Just like that. A left turn that didn't clear. I packed my apartment in Portland in silence. I told friends I just needed a quieter place to think, maybe work on my editing projects somewhere calmer. They nodded. No one argued. Grief is hard to question. Missoula was a pin on a map I'd once saved during a road trip years ago. Elk Creek Residences had a vacancy on the top floor. 3rd floor, small, clean, affordable, surrounded by pine trees and morning fog that rolled in off the mountains like something from a dream. It felt right. I signed the lease, bought blackout curtains, moved in with 2 suitcases and a laptop. For a while it worked. The apartment itself was nothing special. A simple layout, beige walls, gray carpet, laminate floors in the kitchen. I added warm lighting, a throw blanket that used to sit on my dad's recliner, hung up a photo of us at Glacier National Park, my little anchor. I didn't talk to many people. I didn't want to. I worked, freelance editing jobs through a platform that let me stay invisible, quiet like I needed. The only real interaction I had was with a man named Jonas Callan from Unit 204, the apartment directly below mine. We met the day I moved in. I was struggling to carry a box of books when he opened the door below and looked up the stairwell. "Need a hand?" he asked. I hesitated. "I'm good, thanks." He nodded and smiled. "All right, just thought I'd offer. I'm always listening anyway." It struck me as odd, but I assumed he meant he worked from home. He said something about medical transcription, long hours with headphones, a job where you have to be still and focused. I understood that. For the first week, nothing happened. Nothing at all. Then, at 3:12 a.m. one night, I woke to a sound. Not loud, not even jarring, just deliberate, scratching. I froze, still lying in bed, heart suddenly thudding. The sound was directly under me, beneath the floorboards. Not a rat, not pipes. It was too controlled. Long, slow drags like someone running fingernails or a wire across wood. I got up, flipped the light on, and it stopped. Silence. Just the hum of the fridge down the hall. I stood there staring at the carpet. Told myself it was stress, that this was what grief did, made the mind strange and the body sensitive. I told myself a lot of things that week. But the sound returned, again and again. Always at 3:12. Grief makes you doubt yourself. You hear things that aren't there, forget words mid-sentence, lose track of time like it's water slipping through your fingers. That's what I kept telling myself every time the scratching started. But this wasn't just grief, not anymore, because it wasn't random. The sound came exactly at 3:12 a.m., not 3:11, not 3:13. Always the same. A dragging motion under the bed like someone pacing. One long scrape pause, another. Then silence. One night I pressed my ear to the floor. I don't know what I expected. Nothing maybe. But I swear, I heard a breath. Not mine. Not a pipe. A single human exhale. I sat up so fast I cracked my elbow against the side table. I emailed management the next day. They replied with a cheery, "We'll remind all residents about quiet hours. Let us know if it continues." Like I was some college student complaining about loud music. I didn't press. I was tired. Too tired to chase answers I wasn't sure I wanted. Later that week, I heard piano music through the floor. Gentle, haunting chords that floated up like mist. Melancholy and beautiful. I stood still for the whole piece, maybe 3 minutes. Then nothing. The next day, I saw Jonas near the mailbox. "Hey," I said casually. "You play?" He looked up from his phone. "Play?" "The piano. I heard it yesterday." He smiled faintly. "Only when someone listens." I forced a laugh, unsure how to respond. That night, I shoved a heavy chair against my bedroom door, just in case. November brought snow and long nights. Missoula turned gray and soft, like the world had gone to sleep. I worked in silence, edited manuscripts, sent invoices, and did everything I could not to think too hard. About Dad, about the sound under my bed. I started sleeping with a podcast in my ears. White noise, sometimes thunder, sometimes rain. It helped. A little. Then the note came. I found it early one morning. It had been slid under my front door, folded in half on thick paper. Handwritten in neat script. "You walk too quietly. I almost missed you tonight. Don't worry, I never sleep either." No name, no return address, just a faint smell of cologne. I recognized it instantly. Jonas. The same cologne I smelled the day I moved in. The scent that lingered in the stairwell sometimes. I stood holding the note with trembling fingers, trying to decide if I should knock on his door, scream, call the police, or burn the thing. I reported it to the office. Their response was vague. "We'll check in with Unit 204. Nothing more. The next few nights I barely slept. I locked the bedroom door, placed a chair against it, turned on every light in the apartment. My nerves were frayed. I considered breaking the lease, but something inside me, pride, fear, stubbornness, kept me rooted. Then the power went out. It was mid-January. A storm rolled in, dropping heavy snow and knocking out the power around 2 a.m. The apartment plunged into darkness. I lit 3 candles and curled up on the couch with my phone, watching the battery slowly die. At 3:12 a.m., the knock came. Not on the door. On the floor. 3 slow taps. I froze. Then came the whisper. Muffled, but unmistakable, floating up from beneath the floorboards. "I know you're still awake." I grabbed my phone and called the building supervisor. He arrived 30 minutes later. We knocked on Jonas's door. No answer. I insisted we open it. The supervisor hesitated, said it wasn't protocol, but when he saw the state I was in, the shaking hands, the wild eyes, he unlocked it. Unit 204 was wrong. Not dirty, not cluttered, just off, sterile, empty, like no one really lived there. A twin bed, a single wooden chair, no piano, no personal items. And the walls, they were covered in photographs of me, some taken from outside, some from the hallway, and one from inside my apartment. The police were called. They found a crawl space beneath my bedroom floor, just large enough for someone to lie in. A foam mat, empty wrappers, and audio equipment. The kind used to monitor heartbeats in neonatal units. It led directly to a floor vent under my bed. Jonas was gone. No record of where he went. No bank activity. His phone disconnected, like he evaporated. They moved me out that night. The city offered a trauma counselor. I said yes. I had to. Sleep became a stranger. I still checked under the bed every night. Still locked the door twice. Still listened for whispers in the dark. Weeks passed. I tried to work again. Moved to a small studio on the other side of town. Something new. Something mine. Then one evening, I got a message on my freelance website. A client inquiry. No profile picture. No return email. The message read, "Hi Megan. Loved the way you read aloud that last essay. Your voice was trembling around 3:12 though. Sleep better tonight." JC, I reported the account. They said they'd investigate. I don't expect they will. When something feels wrong, it probably is. We're taught to rationalize fear, to be polite, to wait for proof, to not overreact. But predators live in the space between your doubt and your instinct. Always trust the discomfort. Don't wait for danger to introduce itself. Listen to the knock. My name's Aaron Hale. I'm 32, recently divorced, 7.5 months sober, and renting a 2-bedroom apartment on the far western edge of Flagstaff, Arizona. The kind of place that looks like it was built in a hurry and never finished right. Everything creaks. The hallway buzzes faintly from a fluorescent light that no one's fixed since the Reagan administration. You can hear every sneeze, every footstep, every argument, thin walls pretending to hold back the weight of people's lives. After I lost custody of my daughter, I stopped drinking. I moved here to be closer to her, even though I only see her every other Sunday and for court-monitored walks around her school. I teach when I can. Substitute gigs mostly, middle school English and science. The rest of the time I keep to myself, read a lot, write even more. There's a whole journal just for dreams now, another one for daily mantras, and one where I confess things I'd never tell a soul, not even my sponsor. I don't sleep well. I never have. The silence is too loud. Too many thoughts knock around when it's quiet. Memories I'd rather leave buried. So at night I sit by the window. Unit 207, top floor, end of the building. I can see most of the parking lot from there. Most nights I watch the other apartment lights flicker off, one by one. Some windows glow blue from TV screens, others soft yellow from lamps. It's oddly calming, except one. The unit next door, 209, glows a weird green-blue, like a low-lit fish tank. But it never changes. No flickering. No shadows. Just that same eerie hue from dusk till dawn. It started the second week of January. I remember the night because it was the first time the snow stuck since New Year's, and I'd just finished marking up essays from a 7th grade English class that didn't know how to spell because without autocorrect. At 11:06 p.m., I heard a knock. Not loud, just polite, hesitant even. I opened the door and saw a woman, mid-40s, thin, sharp eyes, lips curved like she was always on the edge of a smile but never quite committed to it. She had auburn hair pulled back into a low, messy ponytail. She wore a burgundy sweater, jeans, and held a bottle of wine and 2 mismatched glasses. "Hi," she said. "I'm Danielle. I'm in 209. Thought I'd say hello." "Hey," I said, still holding the doorknob. "Nice to meet you." "You drink?" I hesitated. "Not anymore." She tilted her head. "You don't have to. I just thought, maybe you'd want to talk. Sometimes this place feels like it wants to swallow quiet people." It was such an odd thing to say that I froze. Yeah. Thanks. I'm okay though." She nodded, like she expected that. "Do you ever feel like people can hear your thoughts when you're alone too long?" she asked, her tone playful but not joking. I blinked. "Not really." She stared at me for a moment, then gave that same half smile. "Right. Maybe that's just me." And with that, she turned and walked back to her door. I stood there a while, watching the green-blue light spill across her hallway carpet. The next few nights were uneventful, except the light. Always on. Always that same watery shade. I convinced myself it was one of those Himalayan salt lamps or a therapy bulb. Still, something about it seeped under my skin. Then came the noise. It started faint. A soft murmur, like distant conversation, bleeding through the walls. I thought maybe she was on the phone. But the voices, they looped. I started recognizing patterns. One voice always wept. Another whispered over and over, "Please, please, please." And once, I swear, I heard my name. Aaron. Just once, like a breath caught between syllables. I pressed my ear to the wall. The sound stopped. I recorded it. Played it back. Nothing. Just low static. I went to the leasing office the next day. Told them I was concerned about noise at night. They gave me the usual polite dismissal. "Danielle's quiet," the guy at the desk said. "From the apartment above. Never had a single complaint. Are you sure it wasn't I wanted to say?" There is no apartment above. We're on the top floor, but I just nodded. When I came back that night, the hallway outside 209 smelled like burnt lavender and plastic, and the glow seemed even stronger. It made my apartment feel dim by comparison. By late February, the dreams returned. Nightmares I hadn't had since I got sober. My daughter in locked rooms, her tiny fists pounding on doors I couldn't open, a television that only played home movies of her crying, on loop. Sometimes I'd wake up and swear I still heard her voice in my head, asking me why I let her go. The light from 209 seeped through the blinds, painting my ceiling like murky water. I couldn't take it anymore. I knocked on her door around 8 p.m., heart pounding like I was confronting a ghost. Danielle answered wearing giant black headphones and a loose cardigan. Her eyes were red-rimmed, but she smiled like I'd interrupted something delightful. "Hey," I said. "Can I ask you something?" She pulled the headphones off slowly. "Sure." "What are you doing in there?" I asked. "Something?" "The lights, the sounds. Are you recording?" Her smile flattened, just for a second. "You shouldn't be out this late," she said. "You never know what might follow you home." "I live here," I said. "Next door." "That's the worst place to be," she whispered. Then she closed the door. The next few nights were worse, scratching inside the walls, at first soft, like a mouse or a loose pipe, then knocking, patterned, not random, tap tap, pause, tap tap tap, like code. One night, it jolted me mid-shower. I rushed out, water dripping everywhere, and found my front door wide open. No wind, no damage, just open. I bought a motion camera on Amazon and set it up in the living room facing the hallway. The first night it caught nothing. The second night it caught her. Danielle, standing in my apartment at 2:17 a.m. She didn't move, just stood by the edge of the couch, hands twitching like she was clutching invisible objects. Then she turned, walked back out, and closed the door without a sound. I drove the footage to the police station. They sent officers out the next morning. Danielle's apartment was empty. No furniture, no wine glasses, no salt lamps, nothing. Just wires coiled on the floor, white noise machines unplugged, a broken pair of headphones, and a dozen cassette tapes in an old plastic bin. The labels made my stomach drop. Tuesday, Aaron breathing. Aaron 2:13 a.m., mirror, wall thoughts. Sunday. When they ran the tapes, they found my voice. Not full conversations, just pieces. Me talking on the phone, reading aloud, singing quietly, stuff I never remembered saying out loud. They found sound equipment tucked into the floor vents. Some of it was handmade, wires soldered crudely, set to catch vibrations. They estimated she'd been gone for at least 4 days. But my footage, her in my apartment, was from the night before. I moved, not far, just down to Unit 104. The leasing office offered a discount. I didn't argue. I started sleeping again, but not peacefully. I'd check the locks 3 times before bed, cover the vents with towels, muffle every sound I made like I could somehow erase my existence from the space. It didn't work. It came 2 weeks later. An envelope slid under my door. No return address. Inside was a cassette tape, unlabeled, and a single note. I found another way in. I never needed the wall. 209. The handwriting was jagged, almost frantic, like someone wrote it while running. I didn't have a player, but I knew better than to try and listen to it. Instead, I threw it in the dumpster, wrapped in a plastic bag with gloves on. That night, I dreamed of Danielle again, her face pressed against the vent near my bed, smiling, whispering, "You sleep too loud, Aaron." Not all intrusions break doors or smash windows. Some slip through routine, through trust, through silence, and make a home in your thoughts. When the boundary between privacy and obsession blurs, it's not always about what others can hear. It's about what they've already recorded. I didn't grow up thinking I'd spend my mid-30s alone, barely speaking to another person in a given week. But then again, I didn't plan for my mother to die in the same house she spent her last 20 years. The same one I spent most of mine trying to get away from. Grief is strange. It doesn't hit you all at once like the books say. It creeps in through the quiet hours, shows up in a drawer left half open, or a voicemail you can't bring yourself to delete. After she passed, I stayed in the city for a while. Too long. The buildings made me feel like I was underwater. Too many faces, none familiar. Too much noise. So I left Chicago. Took a long route up into the Upper Peninsula. Marquette's a sleepy town in summer, quieter in fall, and practically ghost-like by November. That's what I liked about it. Quiet, weather, distance. I moved into a small villa-style rental on Spruce Street, Riverbend Villas, Unit 11. Nothing fancy. Just a clean one-bedroom with a back porch that faced the tree line along a ridge. On the other side of that ridge sat Unit 10, identical in layout. Same porch, same bluff view, except it always looked empty. I'm a wildlife photographer, mostly deer, birds, foxes, and that sort of thing. My work is solitary by nature. It suits me. My only real company was the click of a shutter, the rustle of leaves, and whatever music I played when I edited photos at night. I didn't mind it. In fact, I needed it. Then came the storm. It was late August, the kind of night when thunder cracks and your bones feel it. I had just made tea, left the lights low. Around 1:30 a.m., lightning flashed and lit up the bluff. I turned toward the window instinctively, and that's when I saw her. A woman, pale face, mid-40s maybe, thin. She was standing in the back window of Unit 10, staring straight toward mine. Her eyes didn't move. She didn't flinch. The light from the storm cast her in silhouette, but I could make out every feature. She wasn't reflected in the glass. She was behind it, and she wasn't blinking. I stood there frozen until the next lightning flash, and just like that, she was gone. I waited until morning, tried to laugh it off, told myself it was a trick of the light, a reflection, or just sleep deprivation. I've been wrong before. But the next night she was there again, and the next, always at the same time, 1:38 a.m., always the same expression. Not angry, not sad, just present. When I brought it up to Harold, the property manager, he scratched his head and laughed in that forced way people do when they're trying not to admit something feels off. Unit 10, he said. Nobody's there. Hasn't been since April. Lady who lived there, real quiet. Left without a word. Said she heard voices in the vents or something. I didn't sleep that night. Not from fear exactly, but from confirmation. By the end of September, the voice came. Not loud, not angry. Just whispers, like breath caught in a hallway. They came through the back vent above my bed. Always late, always fragmented. He's too quiet. We don't like quiet ones. He watches animals because people scare him. Would he bury her in the woods too? They weren't just whispers. They were sentences about me. Things I hadn't said out loud. Things I hadn't even fully admitted to myself. I stopped sleeping with the window open. I unplugged everything in the apartment at night. Camera, laptop, toaster. Didn't matter. Then on a cold Monday morning in early October, I found something on my back porch table. A disposable camera. No note. No name. Just sitting there, dry as bone despite the rain the night before. I thought about throwing it away, but curiosity and panic got the better of me. I had it developed at a shop downtown. 12 photos, all of me. One of me shaving, another of me making coffee. A third of me asleep on my side, blanket pulled halfway up. But a few didn't make sense. They were taken from angles inside my apartment, looking out at my porch. A few from behind me at my desk. One from the hallway only I had keys to. I went to the police. Officer took my statement, asked routine questions. They found no prints on the camera, no signs of forced entry. The manager confirmed. That unit's locked. Always has been. no keys, unaccounted for. But every night after, she kept appearing, 1:38 a.m. like clockwork. I stopped turning on the lights at night, just sat in the dark, camera in my lap, heart in my throat. It all came to a head the morning I lost my patience. I walked out, turned the corner, and stood in front of Unit 10. I wasn't sure what I was expecting: graffiti, trash, an empty space. But the door, it was unlocked. I stepped inside. It was cold. Not fall chilly, deep winter cold. The kind of chill that gets inside your bones. Everything was empty. Immaculate. No dishes, no mail, no pictures. Just a single wooden chair in the living room, placed precisely in front of the window facing my unit. On the floor, a stack of VHS tapes, labeled by hand. Julian, first morning. Julian, crying, Sept 14. Julian, night routine. Julian, 1:38 a.m., lightning face. No TV, no player, just the tapes. And at the window, a tripod-mounted camera. Old, analog, with the kind of lens I hadn't seen since college. I didn't touch anything. I backed out, walked straight to Harold's office. He paled when I told him. Swore again the unit was locked from the outside, that no one had been in it since spring. He opened the door himself that afternoon. Everything I saw, gone. No chair, no tapes, no camera, just a hollow space. I packed that night, left by morning. Didn't look back. I told myself it was just trauma, just grief playing games. But that was a lie, because a month later, working on a wildlife project up north near Traverse City, I checked into a roadside motel, tired, worn out. I collapsed onto the bed, closed the blinds, and shut off the world. Then my burner phone, the one I only use for maps, buzzed. Unknown number, one message. Window looks good from this angle, still prefer 1:38. I didn't reply. I threw the phone out the car window the next day. And even now, I tape over every lens, every vent, because I never saw her blink, not once. Sometimes the things we keep private aren't as hidden as we think. In a world that watches more than it listens, silence can become a spotlight. Guard your quiet spaces. They're more fragile than you realize. Long before I moved to Asheville, I used to imagine what starting over might feel like. Not the Pinterest version with fairy lights and new hobbies and a perfect espresso machine perched on the windowsill. I mean the real kind, when you pack what's left of your dignity into a used hatchback, cry the whole way down I-85, and land somewhere no one knows your name or what you've survived. After I left Charlotte, and him, I told myself I wasn't running. But the truth? I was sprinting. The Maple Hollow apartments weren't much, but Unit 1A had ivy on the bricks and old hardwood floors that creaked like they had stories of their own. The place smelled like lemon cleaner and old plaster. It was quiet, which was all I wanted. Quiet. And a lock on the door. Mr. Harold, the landlord, was a wiry man in his 70s with yellowed glasses and a permanent squint. He was kind in a distant way, handed me my keys with a thick stack of paperwork, and reminded me twice about trash pickup days. My upstairs neighbor, Daniel, introduced himself right after I unloaded the last of my boxes. He was soft-spoken, maybe my age, and offered to help carry my bookshelf. First floor life, he joked. Lucky you. I laughed politely. Thanks, I guess. If you hear me crying through the vent, mind your business. He smiled, but something in his eyes flickered. Safe hours. Already memorized your schedule. I thought he was being sarcastic, I really did. That first night I sat on the floor eating takeout, surrounded by boxes and the faint purring of my cat, Benny. For the first time in months, I didn't feel watched. I didn't feel judged. I thought, this is peace. But I've learned peace can be a performance, right before something cracks. Life settled into a routine. I got a job at a local cafe, started working on poems again. They were bad, but they were mine. Most nights I fell asleep to the low hum of traffic and the occasional thump of footsteps above me. Daniel was quiet, neighborly, not nosy. He recommended a sleep podcast when I mentioned I couldn't rest. Strangely, it was the exact one I already listened to. "Small world," I said. "Or maybe I just have good taste," he replied. A week later, I told him I was craving peanut butter cups. He showed up the next day with a pack. "You didn't say it out loud," I said slowly. He smiled, eyes unreadable. "Didn't I?" I told myself I was being paranoid. Trauma rewires your brain like that. Everything becomes a threat, even kindness. I ignored it, focused on work, on healing, on anything but that creeping sense of being observed. Then my backup charger disappeared. A few days later, Benny's collar was gone. I assumed I'd misplaced them until I found my journal open on a page I hadn't written in for weeks. I bought a cheap indoor cam and pointed it at the entryway. I didn't tell anyone. The next day, the battery was dead. I didn't sleep well that week. The day I locked myself out, I felt like the biggest idiot alive. I was standing in my socks on the front step holding a bag of groceries and cursing myself when Daniel appeared behind me. "Forgot your spare?" he asked casually. I blinked. "What spare?" He held up a key, my spare key, the one I'd hidden under the microwave inside my apartment. "You left it in the laundry room door a few weeks ago. Figured I'd keep it safe, just in case." I took the key with numb fingers, forcing a thank you smile. That night I installed a chain lock and jammed a chair under the handle like I was in a motel off the highway. My heart wouldn't settle. Neither would Benny. He kept staring at the ceiling. Daniel's pacing started 2 nights later. I could hear him through the floorboards. Heavy, slow steps. Hours of it. 2 a.m., 3 a.m., just pacing. I texted Mr. Harold asking about the possibility of moving to another unit. He didn't answer. The next morning there was a sticky note on my door. The handwriting was neat. "Leaving already? You were doing so well this time. I liked watching you start over." I called the police. They searched. Nothing was missing, no sign of forced entry. The note didn't have usable prints. "Could be a prank," one officer said. "We'll keep a report on file, but there's nothing actionable." Nothing actionable. I slept with the lights on that night. I woke up before the sound. It was one of those moments where the body registers the wrongness before the brain does. The air felt cold, heavy. Benny wasn't on the bed. My eyes scanned the room, heart already thudding. I sat up and then I noticed it. The bathroom mirror was fogged over, like someone had just showered. My camera was off again. I staggered into the hallway. Benny was wedged under the kitchen counter, shaking. I called my brother, whispering into the phone. "I think someone's been in here." He didn't hesitate. "Get out now, don't wait. Just grab your bag and go." I threw things into a tote, grabbed my keys, ran for the door. The chain lock was on the floor. Cut clean. I stared at it, breath stuck in my chest. Someone had been inside, while I was sleeping. While I was dreaming about poems and peace and peanut butter cups, someone was watching me. I didn't stop to think. I ran. My aunt helped me break the lease. I moved to Nashville, where she lived. I found a job at another cafe, signed up for therapy, and started unpacking in new ways. Trust is a muscle, I've learned. It atrophies. Then it grows, slowly, painfully. Sometimes I still flinch when I hear footsteps above me. Sometimes I still press my ear to the wall and wait. The voicemail started 2 weeks after I moved. No number, no voice, just footsteps. Slow, steady, like pacing on old hardwood floors from upstairs. I don't answer them anymore. Sometimes danger doesn't kick down your door. It smiles from the hallway, learns your favorite podcast, holds on to your spare key just in case. We teach ourselves to doubt our instincts to seem polite, to seem sane. But the truth is simple. When something feels wrong, it probably is. Trust your gut. It might be the only thing standing between you and the thing upstairs. After the divorce, I didn't take much. Some clothes, my books, the photo of Elise, my daughter from last Christmas, and the espresso machine my ex never used but insisted on keeping on the counter like a prop. The rest I left behind in the house she now called home, with rooms echoing without me. I moved into Unit 2C at Ashford Terrace condos in early March. Syracuse was still half frozen, and the whole complex felt like a retirement brochure without the smiles. Thin walls, pale siding, old people who walked like they'd seen too much and talked like they didn't care if you ever replied. It was fine. I didn't need community. I needed distance. From my ex, from Elise, from the man I used to be. My unit sat directly above 1D. It looked vacant when I moved in. Shades drawn, mailbox unclaimed. That changed maybe 2 weeks later. I noticed lights flicking on at strange hours, always dim and yellow, like an old lamp with a dying bulb. Then I saw her, a woman, standing at her window. Always still, always facing the courtyard. Her silhouette never shifted, just hovered near the glass like she was watching a show only she understood. I didn't meet her until I dropped the wrong mail in her slot. Small mistake. That happens in places like this. I knocked gently. The door opened before I could try a second time. She was pale, neat, mid to late 30s maybe, straight brown hair tucked behind her ears. She smiled politely, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "You must be the one with the slow steps," she said. "Sorry?" I blinked. "You walk like you're thinking about where you've been. That's nice." I handed her the mail and mumbled something. She said thank you in a whisper, and the door closed as softly as it had opened. Her name was Ms. Lane, according to the sticker on the mailbox. I never saw her come or go. It started small, a torn photo of Elise, one I kept in a frame on my nightstand tucked behind an old ticket stub she gave me when she was 9. The frame wasn't broken, just the photo missing. I found it a few days later, face down on the doormat outside my unit, torn across the middle. Then came the post-it notes. "It's sad to hear people cry through the vents." Just that, once in blue ink, once in pencil, tucked under my door like receipts from a therapist I never hired. I didn't sleep much that month. I blamed the stress, the divorce, the guilt. I worked longer hours at the school, spent too much time online shopping for things I never bought. My phone calls with Elise grew shorter, colder. She was starting to sound like her mother. I started showering at the gym, left the bedroom TV on all night. I told myself I was being dramatic, sensitive, but something inside me, something quiet and steady, started whispering that maybe this place wasn't right. Then one morning, just after 4, I heard dragging in the hallway. I opened the door a crack. Ms. Lane was kneeling outside her unit, dragging a black garbage bag across the carpeted hall. Her left hand was bandaged and bleeding. She looked up at me, smiled. "Sorry," she said. "It's just old things. I'm finally throwing out old things." I closed the door. After that, I bought a doorbell cam, the kind that sends a notification when it senses motion. Nothing ever showed up. No movement, no alerts. But I started writing everything down. Dates, times, what I heard, what I imagined I saw. It helped. Sort of. One afternoon, I caught Ms. Lane watching me from the courtyard again. Just standing in the grass, no umbrella, no coat, in the middle of a drizzle, eyes locked on my unit. Her expression was blank, like she wasn't really looking at me, but through me. In June, a transformer blew near the back entrance. The whole complex lost power for 4 hours. When I woke up the next morning, something was wrong. Not obvious, not at first. The bedroom was stuffy, like someone had been breathing in it for too long. The sheets were off, shifted, tugged at. Not in the way I moved in my sleep, but the way someone might straighten them with one hand and hesitate. There was a glass of water on the nightstand. I don't sleepwalk. I don't drink water in the middle of the night, and I don't own that kind of glass. In the hallway, Just past the threshold of my room were 2 damp footprints. Bare, small, pressed gently into the hardwood. The police came. I asked them to search her unit. They said they couldn't without cause. "She's not home anyway," one of them said. I spent the next week in a Motel 6 off the highway. When I came back, everything was the same. Ms. Lane's lights were on. No one said anything. Mr. Alberti from 3B nodded at me like I'd never left. The mail slot was full again. I dug through it absent-mindedly. That's when I found the letter. No envelope, no stamp. Just a single sheet of paper, tucked between a catalog and my electric bill. The handwriting was careful, tight cursive, like someone who practiced to look normal. "I can still hear you breathing even when you're quiet. I like the version of you that sleeps. You're safest when you're asleep." I didn't pack like someone running. I packed like someone fleeing. By midnight, I was gone. No forwarding address, no goodbyes. Just the hum of the highway under my wheels and the tight ache in my throat I hadn't felt since Elise's last birthday, when she didn't want to blow out the candles with me there. I live in Rochester now, with my cousin. It's not glamorous, longer commute, noisy street, but I sleep better here mostly. I've reached out to Elise. We're talking again, slowly, like a bridge being rebuilt after a fire. Her voice still makes my chest hurt, but I take that as a good sign. Last month I got an email from an address I didn't recognize. No subject line, no message, just one attachment. It was a video of me, sleeping, shot from the floor vent near my bed. When we lose everything, family, routine, the version of ourselves we thought was permanent, we often look for stability in the wrong places. We ignore red flags, excuse the strange, and rationalize the terrifying just to feel grounded again. But trust isn't just about other people. It's about trusting yourself, your senses, your instincts, your discomfort. Because the truth is, the scariest monsters don't always break in. Sometimes, they've been watching from below the whole time. If you'd asked me at 15 where I thought I'd be a year later, Redfern, Pennsylvania would have been dead last on the list. Maybe not dead last. Prison would have been worse. But Redfern was pretty close. After the trial, after the reporters, after the mess with my stepfather, all my mom wanted was for us to disappear. She said it like a plan. Like a clean break would erase everything that came before. So we packed up what we could fit in the car and left Florida behind. No more Gulf humidity. No more late-night police calls. Just 2 suitcases, a battered Honda Civic, and the kind of silence that stretches between people who've seen too much. Redfern was a small town the way a whisper is small, tucked into the Allegheny woods like it didn't want to be found. The town had 1 diner, 1 grocery store, and a population that looked like it hadn't changed since the 1970s. Our house was old, wooden stairs that moaned like they had opinions, wallpaper that peeled like it wanted out. But the rent was cheap and the neighbors waved. That was enough. Our neighbors directly across the street were the Callaways. At first glance, they seemed perfect, like something from a vintage ad. 4 blonde kids, ages maybe 6 to 13, all with matching clothes and perfectly brushed hair. Mrs. Callaway wore dresses with collars and pearls, even to water her roses. Mr. Callaway wore slacks and always smiled with his mouth closed. Too wide, too still. They brought us pumpkin bread the first week, invited us to their church. My mom thanked them and took the bread but didn't say yes. She grew up Catholic and had long since stopped praying. Nice people, she said. Bit Stepford, though. But I watched the Callaways, the kids especially. They never ran, never yelled. They walked to the bus stop in a perfect line, eyes down, mouths shut. Not even the youngest made a sound. It was like they were trying not to be noticed. And for a while, I tried to not notice too. We got invited to dinner 2 weeks later. Mrs. Callaway knocked with her ever-perfect smile and said, "Just a simple meal, nothing fancy. We'd love to have you." I didn't want to go. My mom didn't either, but she thought it was rude to say no again. We were new. The gossip wheel was always spinning, so we went. Their house smelled like wax and soap and something sweet. Too sweet, like rot hiding under sugar. The dining room was lit with candles even though the sun was still out. Every place setting was identical. The children said grace in unison, heads bowed, voices flat. It went on for 5 full minutes. I watched their lips move. None of them blinked. Dinner was meatloaf. Plain, warm, tasteless. Halfway through, the youngest, Caleb, dropped his fork and started whispering. It wasn't English. Not really. Maybe Latin. His eyes rolled back into his head. His body went stiff. Mrs. Callaway didn't even pause her chewing. My mom gasped, dropped her fork. She touched my arm under the table. "Time to go," she said softly, fake smiling across the table. "Ellie has a project." Outside, she didn't say much, just locked her door that night for the first time since we moved. I lay in bed listening to nothing, not crickets, not wind, just nothing. Like the air around that house swallowed everything else. Things got stranger. On Sunday mornings, the entire Callaway family circled their house exactly 7 times, always clockwise, always barefoot. Mr. Callaway led them, holding a thick black book. Sometimes he shouted. Sometimes he cried. Once, I saw him shirtless in the backyard, kneeling, hitting himself with a leather strap. He was whispering through gritted teeth. The Bible in his lap had scorch marks on the cover. My mom watched him through the kitchen window. She opened the back door and called, "Where the kids don't have to see it." "Excuse me, Mr. Callaway, could you maybe do that?" He turned, blood on his back. His voice gentle. "Pain cleanses the vessel." Then he handed her a tract with that same title. She threw it away. The Callaway kids never looked at anyone. At school, they sat in silence. No clubs, no sports. Their eyes were wide, blank, like they were waiting for something to end. Their oldest, Leah, was in one of my classes. She never spoke, not even to the teacher. One night I was up late reading. The porch light flickered across the street. I peeked through the blinds. Mr. Callaway was standing alone on his lawn, perfectly still, staring straight at our house. I didn't sleep much after that. It was the end of October when Martha, the 3rd Callaway child, came to our porch. I remember because it was cold, almost freezing, and she was barefoot. She didn't knock, just stood there. My mom opened the door and gasped, "Honey, are you okay? Where's your coat?" Martha didn't speak, just handed over a small folded note, then turned and walked away. I opened it. "Don't drink the water." My mom read it. Her face drained. She called CPS. They came, spoke to the Callaways, walked through the house supposedly, said everything looked fine, no cause for further action. "Some families are just religious," the woman said. "It's not illegal to pray." "But the children," my mom started, "they're clean, fed, enrolled in school, no bruises, no signs of abuse." That was that, but I noticed we started buying bottled water after that. My mom stopped using the tap. We didn't talk about it. Then, just before Thanksgiving, the Callaways disappeared. No warning, no goodbye. One morning their door was open, house empty, Bibles stacked in neat piles near the kitchen, furniture gone. Even the roses were pulled from the roots. They'd vanished. A year later, a new family moved in. A young couple with a toddler and a German shepherd. They were loud, friendly, normal. One day, the woman asked my mom about the house. "Did you know there were locks on the outside of all the bedroom doors?" she said, laughing nervously, like they were locking someone in. My mom froze. "No," she said softly. "We didn't know." We never told her about the dinners, or the marching, or the note. I still live in Red Fern. My mom doesn't. She moved out when I left for college. But sometimes when I drive past Briar Street late at night, I swear I hear something. A low murmur, like chanting. like someone is still walking in circles around that empty house. Not every nightmare comes with blood and screaming. Some wear pressed shirts and bake you bread. Evil isn't always violent, it's patient. It waits behind closed curtains and silent children. Sometimes the scariest families are the ones who seem most picture perfect. Listen to children, trust your gut, and never ignore a warning, no matter how small it seems. When the fire happened, I stopped believing in safety. Nothing felt real afterward. Not school, not home, not even sleep. My little brother Aaron had died before the firefighters ever made it down our street. My mom and I stood barefoot on the sidewalk, our skin pink from smoke, watching the house we'd built memories in melt away in front of us. She told me later, through tears and clenched fists, that starting over meant moving far away, far from Phoenix, far from the whispers. So we packed what we had left and drove until the desert turned into mist and the nights grew cold enough to see our breath. Elm Valley was the kind of place you didn't know how to find unless you were already lost. Quiet, gray, with the scent of wet pine needles clinging to everything. Our new house was on a cul-de-sac with just 5 homes and 1 streetlight. You could hear every door creak, every cough behind the walls. And just beyond our backyard stood the greenhouse. It leaned crookedly at the edge of the neighboring lot. Glass panels fogged over, some cracked. Vines climbed its spine like it was trying to disappear. But what I noticed first was the light, faint and greenish yellow, always glowing even at night, like a heartbeat under glass. Mr. Denton owned the property. He lived alone in the brown house beside ours. Bald, round, usually in oversized coveralls. Never smiled with his teeth. Wore rubber gloves even in public like the world was too dirty to touch. He nodded when he saw me but rarely spoke. Just looked. Sometimes longer than people are supposed to. I asked my mom about him once. Why his car never moved, why the same muddy tire prints appeared every few days. She said not to worry, that some people just like quiet lives. But the quiet started to feel too deliberate, too curated. It began with my phone ringing. No caller ID, just the sound of buzzing, like bugs trapped in plastic. Then came the open windows. My room was always locked at night, but I'd wake up to cold air and muddy prints on the sill. Small, like someone had stood there with wet boots. Still, I tried not to let my imagination run wild. Trauma does that. Twists shapes in the dark, makes shadows dance when they're just standing still. Then the soccer ball incident changed everything. I'd kicked it too hard one afternoon and it arched clean over the fence into Mr. Denton's yard. The ball disappeared into the grass behind the greenhouse. I didn't want to ask him directly. Something about that man made me feel like I was imposing just by looking at his house. So I crept through the side, careful not to make noise. His yard was too still, like even the bugs didn't want to breathe. The greenhouse door was slightly open. A gust of earthy, coppery air hit me, wet mulch and something metallic underneath. Against better judgment, I peeked inside. The shelves weren't filled with plants. They were lined with mason jars. Hundreds. Some cloudy with time, others freshly wiped. Each one labeled not with Latin plant names or soil pH levels, but human names. Ava, Tyler, K. Some were just initials, written with surgical precision. Inside the jars were scraps. Some had clumps of hair, some yellowed nails. One had what looked like a molar, roots still intact. I didn't stay to look at more. My feet turned before my brain told them to. I left the ball behind. That night, I told my mom. Told her everything. She rubbed her forehead and sighed like she'd been waiting for this. "Jonah," she said gently, "you've been through something unimaginable. You're still healing. It's okay if your brain's playing tricks, but we can't go accusing neighbors of things we don't understand." I nodded, but I didn't sleep. A week later, Mr. Denton came to our door. My mom opened it while I hovered behind her. He held a basket of vegetables, tomatoes, leafy greens, oddly white carrots with dirt still clinging to them. "I thought you might enjoy the harvest," he said. His voice was dry, measured. My mom thanked him politely, like people do when they're trying to be neighborly. I refused to touch a single thing in that basket. That night, after she went to bed, I took it all, the tomatoes, the herbs, even the carrots, and buried it in the woods behind our lot. The next morning, the greenhouse glow had changed. It wasn't soft anymore. It was red, like something had gotten angry. The dream started soon after. Always the same. Aaron standing outside the greenhouse, staring blankly toward our house. He didn't speak, just lifted one arm and pointed toward the forest over and over. I'd wake drenched in sweat, breath caught in my throat. I finally told Casey, the only person at school I trusted. She didn't laugh, just narrowed her eyes, serious. "Let's fly my brother's drone over. He won't miss it." We launched it that Friday, just after Mr. Denton left in a neighbor's pickup. The drone buzzed high over his lot, circling the greenhouse. What we saw on the footage later didn't make sense. The interior of the greenhouse twisted as the drone's camera tilted. We glimpsed something, a movement that didn't match a person, elongated, twisting in angles that reminded me of time-lapse footage only sped up and reversed. The figure flickered in and out of the frame like it noticed us watching. Then the screen froze. Lost signal. The drone never came back. 2 days later, Casey stopped showing up to school. I biked to her house. Her mom answered the door, red-eyed and tense. "She's at her aunt's," she said quickly. But Casey's backpack was still visible in the front room. Her dog barked wildly from the hallway. Her bedroom window was open, too wide. That night I looked out my own window and saw 2 silhouettes moving inside the greenhouse. One was tall, the other smaller, her size. The next morning, Mr. Denton's house was quiet. A for sale sign hung crookedly from the front yard. Just like that, he was gone. The greenhouse door was shut, its glow dead. The new owners moved in mid-August. They tore down the greenhouse in September. I watched them from my bedroom window, saw the look on the foreman's face when his crew found the trap door beneath the gravel. Cops came, trucks arrived. No one told us what was found. But I still hear buzzing at night. Not always loud. Sometimes it's barely there, like a reminder. And sometimes I dream of Aaron again. But now he isn't standing at the greenhouse. He's standing behind me. And I swear he's trying to whisper something I'm too afraid to hear. Not all healing comes from running away. Some wounds require us to face the truths we bury, because ignoring the strange, the broken, or the uncomfortable doesn't make them disappear. It lets them grow. People think quiet means peace. They don't tell you it can be suffocating. I was 19 when I moved into Greenpines Estate. It was the kind of place you drive by and forget. 3 cracked concrete buildings clinging to a patch of scorched earth just outside Redding, California. Summer was swallowing everything that year. Trees wilted, air buzzed with heat, and the ground felt like a stovetop burner. My sister Anna said the rent was cheap and I didn't argue. I needed somewhere quiet, away from crowded campuses and the inside of emergency rooms, away from panic attacks that left me shaking in bathroom stalls and the disappointed eyes of classmates. Anna worked early shifts at a dentist's office. I worked nights at a gas station that never seemed to run out of flickering lights and meth heads. We didn't see each other much. She had the master bedroom, and I took the smaller one across the hall. It worked. For a while. The first few nights I thought I'd finally found some kind of balance. I'd get home around 1 a.m., shower, microwave leftover noodles, and scroll aimlessly until my meds kicked in. But around 2 a.m., things started happening. It began with sound, a low dragging noise, like something heavy being pulled across tile. Slow, rhythmic, from the floor beneath me. I froze, held my breath. Then it stopped. The unit below ours was supposed to be vacant. When I asked Anna, she shrugged and said maybe it was pipes or raccoons. But we didn't share plumbing with the other units, and I doubted raccoons had access to furniture. I asked Mr. Ladd, the apartment manager. Guy looked like he lived on expired bologna and cigarettes. He barely looked up from his clipboard. Echo from the vents, probably. This place carries sound weird. I wanted to believe that. I went back to my routine. But the noises didn't stop. Some nights it was furniture. Others, footsteps. Slow and deliberate, pacing beneath my bed like someone walking back and forth for hours. One night, I heard what sounded like crying. I turned up my fan, stuffed pillows against my ears, told myself I was just tired. Then the cat started acting weird. We'd adopted Charcoal from the shelter a year earlier. He was lazy, affectionate, and didn't have a mean bone in his body. One night I came home and found him clawing at the floor vent in the hallway, ears back, hissing like his life depended on it. I knelt down, my heart already thudding. From the vent came a sound. Faint, barely there, whispering. Two voices, one low, one higher. I pressed my ear closer. The words were too muffled to make out. I knocked once, out of instinct, just a soft tap. Silence. Charcoal bolted to the bedroom, tail puffed. I sat there frozen on the floor. After a minute, I stood up and walked into the kitchen to pour a drink. My hands were shaking. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, our hallway smelled burnt. Not like someone overcooked toast, more like singed hair, chemical, acrid. Anna said maybe someone downstairs burned something. I didn't remind her that there was no one living below us. A week later, I started recording at night. I know how that sounds. Like I was spiraling. Maybe I was, but I had to know if I was imagining things. I left my phone propped on the nightstand, audio app running while I tried to sleep. Most of the time it just picked up static or the distant creak of the building. But one night, at 3:07 a.m., the mic caught something new. Footsteps, heavy and uneven. Then a short burst of laughter, wet, choked, like someone laughing with water in their lungs. I didn't know what to do with that. I saved the file, listened to it a dozen times, played it for Anna the next morning. She told me I needed to take my meds and stop scaring myself, that maybe I'd left a YouTube video playing by accident. I wanted to believe her, but I knew I hadn't. Then came the thud. It happened when the AC kicked on. I was sitting on the bed scrolling through Instagram. The fan in the ceiling rattled to life, and a second later, bang! Something struck the vent, hard, like a fist or a rock. I jumped up, heart pounding. It was late. Anna was asleep. Charcoal was hiding under the bed. I didn't go near the vent. That same night, Anna found something behind the couch. She called me in, holding it with the corner of an old towel. It looked like a toy, or had once been. Burnt, shriveled, like one of those plastic dolls kids bake in the sun. Arms melted into its sides, face twisted. Charcoal wouldn't go near it. Anna said it must have been from the previous tenants, but I'd helped her move in last spring. That space was clean. She called Mr. Ladd. He showed up 15 minutes later, reeking of sweat and stale coffee. Took one look at the object, then asked if we'd been messing around in the basement storage. No, Anna said. He left 10 minutes later without taking the thing. Didn't offer any explanation. Stopped returning our texts after that. I stayed up late the following weekend. It was too hot to sleep anyway. Around 3:12 a.m., I felt it again. Vibration. A subtle, dull thumping from the floor beneath me. I turned off my fan, took off my headphones. Waited. 5 knocks. Deliberate. Slow. Right beneath my bed. I stared at the ceiling. Then again. 5 knocks. I didn't know what possessed me, but I knocked back. 5 taps with my knuckles against the hardwood. Silence. Then a whisper. Not from the vent this time. From the floor itself, like it traveled through the boards. Don't answer the door. My throat closed. I didn't move. A second later, a knock came at our apartment door. Hard. Confident. Not the kind of knock that waits. I walked into the hallway, every nerve on fire. I looked through the peephole. No one was there. Anna was asleep. I didn't wake her. I stood there for 5 minutes before locking the chain and walking back to my room. The next morning we found claw marks, deep, jagged lines etched into the inside of the front door. 4 of them, like fingers, or something worse. I asked an older woman in the laundry room later that day if she knew anything about the unit below ours. She gave me a strange look. Honey, that place has been sealed off for years. 10, maybe more. Fire gutted it. Poor boy died, locked in by his uncle. Real tragedy. I stared at her. There's no record of that. She nodded. No, there wouldn't be. Private property. They kept it quiet. That night, I did something I still regret. I opened the vent. I waited until Anna was asleep, turned off all the lights, sat in my room with just the glow of my phone. The vent was near the baseboard. I unscrewed the cover. The shaft behind it was black, dusty, blowing warm air from the ancient AC system. I leaned closer. At first I saw nothing. Then something shifted inside, just barely. A hand. Small, pale, reaching upward, not lunging, just stretching, searching. I dropped the screwdriver and slammed the vent shut. I didn't tell Anna, just said we needed to leave. She asked if I was having another panic episode. Maybe I was, but I couldn't stay. 2 weeks later, we packed everything and moved into a studio closer to town. I never looked back at that building. I didn't want to. It's been years since Greenpines. I'm stable now, mostly. Therapy helps. I have a job at a bookstore, a cat, a boyfriend who thinks I'm too cautious about locked doors and floor vents. But some nights in new apartments or old hotels, I still freeze when I hear footsteps overhead, or beneath, because sometimes, just like then, I still hear it, deep in the walls or underneath the floorboards. Don't answer the door. Not all warnings come with sirens. Some come as whispers in the dark. And sometimes, the scariest things aren't what knock at the door, but what waits quietly beneath your feet, hoping you'll open it. Be cautious what you invite in, especially when it knocks more than once. Some people move to escape a place. I moved to escape a person. After Paige left last December, I couldn't stay in Chicago. Our apartment felt haunted, not by ghosts, but by routines we built and ruined together. Coffee mugs in pairs, her coat still hanging in the hall. I kept waiting for the front door to open for her to come back to tell me I wasn't as unbearable as she said during the final week. She didn't. By March, I'd packed what I could into the back of my Prius and left. I found a listing online for a 1-bedroom in Cedar Falls, Iowa. The name made me laugh. Briarfield Oaks. It sounded like the kind of retirement community that hosted Thursday bingo and smelled like cough drops and dust. The rent was low, the neighborhood quiet, and most of the tenants were older folks. Exactly what I needed. When I moved in, the building manager, Tom, was finishing a cigarette in the parking lot. Big guy, late 50s, heavy boots and a gut that looked permanent. He nodded toward the second floor. Place above you's empty. Been that way a while. Supposed to get renovated, but supply delays. You'll like it here. Quiet folks. That was important to me. I didn't want roommates, neighbors throwing parties, or anyone who might knock on my door. I wanted stillness. For the first 2 weeks, that's exactly what I got. I worked remotely during the day, coding database tools for a mid-tier software firm. I took walks around the neighborhood in the evening, watched squirrels break into bird feeders and let my lungs adjust to clean air. There were no reminders of Paige, no shared memories clinging to the corners of rooms. But then around the start of the 3rd week I heard footsteps, not the vague thump of distant movement. These were direct, measured, above me, late at night, when the rest of the building was asleep. I stood in my kitchen the first time it happened, microwaving leftover pasta. It was almost midnight. I paused the microwave when I heard the steps. Slow, deliberate pacing across the floor above. Forward, pause, then back. I waited. The sound stopped. I called Tom the next morning. Upstairs? Hey, sorry to bug you. I thought you said no one was in the unit. He was quiet for a second. Still empty. Why? I heard footsteps. Late last night. Pipes, he said quickly. Building's old. You'll hear weird stuff sometimes. I wanted to believe him. But a few nights later, I woke up around 2 a.m. to a soft thud, followed by flakes of plaster falling from the ceiling fan. When I went to the bathroom that morning, I saw a faint mark above the mirror. I stood on the sink to get a better look. It was a footprint, upside down. I told myself I was overtired. I hadn't been sleeping well, and the night still felt like Paige's absence was stitched into them. Grief makes your brain weird. You start seeing things that aren't there just to fill the void. That night, the wind picked up hard. Ice-cold gales slapping against the windows. Around 1:30, the power cut out, and that's when I heard the crying. It was a woman's voice, soft, rhythmic, somewhere between sobbing and whispering. I lit a candle and held it up toward the ceiling. The plaster was still intact, no cracks, no water damage, but the crying didn't stop. I grabbed my coat and stepped outside. The air was sharp and mean. I looked up toward the unit above mine. Pitch black, no lights, no motion. The windows stared back like blind eyes. The next morning, I asked Tom again. He sounded irritated. I told you the place is empty. There's no one crying up there. Then who's walking around every night? He didn't answer, just told me he'd check the place when he got around to it. Later that day, I found a mug shattered on the kitchen floor. I hadn't heard it break. It was just there, in pieces, like it had fallen by itself. A few hours after that, the bathroom mirror cracked clean down the middle. No reason. I hadn't slammed the door, hadn't touched the glass. That night, I was finishing work when the light on my laptop's camera flicked on. I froze. I hadn't joined any calls. Zoom wasn't even open, but the light was on, like someone was watching. I shut the laptop and shoved it into a drawer. I couldn't explain it. And worse, I couldn't rationalize it anymore. Something was happening in that apartment, or to it, or above it, and I was caught in the middle. I bought a cheap sound recorder from a local electronics store, set it on my nightstand every night, let it run while I tried to sleep. The recordings were subtle at first. Creaks, knocks, faint movement. Then came the scratching, something like nails across wood. Then muttering. I played it back over and over. Couldn't make out the words, but the voice was real. And one night I heard something crawling. That's the only word for it. Something moving in quick, skittering bursts across hardwood flooring. The next morning, I went to Tom's office with the files. I played the recordings for him. He didn't say anything, just stared at the recorder with wide, bloodshot eyes. When I looked up the next day, the door to the upstairs unit had caution tape across it. I hadn't heard anyone place it there. That same night, I got a voicemail from an unknown number. The voice was mechanical, distorted. One sentence, low and urgent. Don't look at the ceiling. I dropped the phone. I wish I could say I called someone or left the apartment that second, but I didn't. I froze. Sat on the floor with my back to the couch, all the lights on, gripping a blanket like it could protect me. Around 5 a.m., something changed. The ceiling light above me flickered, then dimmed, then flickered again. I looked up. The ceiling had darkened. Damp patches like condensation spreading outward from the center. Then slowly, a thin crack split through the middle, and behind it something shifted. I couldn't see it clearly, just a form, a suggestion of movement, like something watching from a crawl space. I ran. I drove aimlessly for hours, parked in a strip mall lot on the edge of town and just sat there, watching the sky turn pale with morning. Eventually, I returned. Not because I wanted to, but because I didn't know where else to go. Tom walked the unit with me around noon. No dampness, no cracks, no smell. Everything was untouched. He watched me carefully. "You under stress?" he asked. "You okay?" I didn't answer. That night, I slept in my car. I didn't go inside, left all the lights on and kept the engine running until I dozed off. I stayed in that car for 3 more nights. Then I found the article. 2010. A snowstorm knocked out power for days. A woman who lived in the upstairs unit went missing. No forced entry, no signs of struggle. Her family said she'd become withdrawn in the weeks before. Complained about voices, pacing, sounds in the vents. They never found her. The apartment was never officially cleared. I moved out without notice. Left most of my furniture behind. Didn't even clean. I didn't care. Tom didn't call. Didn't ask. Maybe he understood. That was over 2 years ago. Since then, I've lived in 3 different cities. I always ask one thing when I tour a place. Is there a unit above this one? If there is, I pass. I still hear things sometimes. Faint footsteps in hotel rooms, soft tapping in old ceilings. I try to ignore them. But every now and then, just as I'm falling asleep, the air changes, grows still, heavy, and I hear it again. Don't look at the ceiling. Sometimes the things we run from follow us, not because they want to hurt us, but because they've been ignored for too long. Listen to what you hear, and when something tells you not to look up, believe it. After the accident, I wasn't the same. Something about surviving when Jenna didn't. It haunted me. She'd been driving. I was looking at my phone, a flash of headlights, ice on the road, the crunch of metal. She died instantly. I walked away with a fractured wrist and 1,000 invisible wounds. The guilt lived in my skin. Denver became unbearable. Her toothbrush still sat in the holder. Her coffee mug still in the sink. I packed only what I needed and started looking for a place that felt like nowhere. That's how I found Larkspur Hill, a mid-rise complex on the edge of Bozeman, Montana. Pine trees at the edge of the property, the hills covered in frost, and the wind always howling. The apartment was furnished, cheap and available immediately. 3rd floor, quiet neighbors. No one below me. The unit downstairs is sealed, Miriam, the landlord, said when she handed me the keys. Water damage last spring. No one's been in there for months. Perfect. For a while it was. I worked on commission pieces for children's books, drank too much coffee and kept the lights low. It snowed nearly every day, and I loved the silence. No traffic, no voices, no reminders. But then, about 3 weeks in, it started. At first it was just small things. A dull knock beneath me at 3 a.m., a dragging sound like furniture being pulled across the floor. Then the vent in my hallway started rattling, faintly, like something brushing against it from the other side. One night I lay awake, staring at the ceiling fan. I could swear I saw a flicker, like light, rising through the cracks in the floorboards. Dull, orange, not quite candlelight, not quite electric. I pressed my ear to the floor, and I heard it, rustling, and a voice, whispering. The cadence was strange, almost like someone repeating something. I couldn't make out all the words, except one line that chilled me. She stayed. She stayed too long. The next morning, I took my coffee and walked down to Miriam's unit on the 1st floor. She opened the door in her usual fuzzy robe, blinking like she'd just woken up. "Sorry to bother you," I said. "Mine. It's just, I keep hearing noises at night." From the unit below, she furrowed her brow. "There's no one in that unit. You know that. Could someone have gotten in?" She shook her head. "Restored power down there." "No, I have the only key. It's still water damaged, Harper. We haven't even..." I nodded, trying to keep my voice even. "Right, okay. Just weird building sounds, maybe." That night, I set my phone on record and placed it by the floor vent. I left it running for 3 hours. When I played it back the next morning, I nearly dropped it. Soft whispers, scraping, something that sounded like nails tapping against metal. But the worst part was the voice. Faint, female, repeating that same phrase but with a slight change. She stayed too long, and now she can't leave. The lights in my hallway flickered later that night. I heard a soft thud outside my bedroom and froze. From under the door I saw it, fingers, 4 of them, just curled, unmoving, like someone crouched on the other side, too still to be human. But they never knocked. The next day, a white van was parked near the building's entrance. It had a plumber's logo on the side. I rushed out, coat half-zipped, snow crunching under my boots. "Are you working on the unit below 3B?" I asked. The guy looked confused. "We were called for a 3rd-floor pipe burst, not 2nd floor. No one's touched that unit in almost a year." I felt the blood drain from my face. That night I didn't sleep. I sat on the couch, knees to my chest, every light on. Around 2:20 a.m., the hallway bulb flickered once, twice, then went out completely. I waited. At 2:37 a.m., the vent rattled, then stopped. And then came the voice, this time right behind the wall. "She's here now, she came back." I screamed and threw the nearest book at the vent. The sound stopped, but I couldn't unhear the voice. Desperate, I went online and searched the building's address. There wasn't much, just an old rental listing and one outdated zoning document. But in a cached article from November 2018, I found it. A woman named Sarah Linfield, children's author, lived in the unit directly below mine, went missing during a snowstorm. Her sister had reported her missing. Police entered weeks later and found the flat abandoned, mirrors broken, phrases written in red ink on every wall. She kept coming back. I confronted Miriam again. This time I didn't bother being polite. "You told me no one's been in that flat," I said, holding out my phone. "Someone died there." "You didn't tell me." Her face went pale. She motioned me inside. We sat down in her cramped kitchen and she looked older than I remembered. "I didn't lie," she said. "No one's been in there since. I didn't think it would affect the upstairs." "What happened to her?" "She was grieving. Her sister had passed the year before. Some said she talked to herself. Said the apartment held things. Said it whispered to her. Then one night, she just vanished." "Was it suicide?" "They don't know. There was no blood, no signs of a break-in, just empty." I stood up. "I'm leaving." "Harper," she said. "Anyone. That apartment, sometimes grief echoes. You understand that better than." I didn't respond. I went upstairs, packed a bag, shoved my tablet and sketchbook into it and drove to Missoula that same night. I never went back to Larkspur Hill. I left behind 2 weeks' rent, 3 houseplants, and my best coat. I didn't care. For weeks I slept on a friend's pull-out couch in a cold basement. I woke up with her dog sleeping on my chest and tears in my eyes. But I was breathing again, eating again. Eventually I found a new place. A top-floor apartment in a building with no one below or above. Sunlight poured through the windows in the morning, and the floors didn't creak. There were no vents connecting to other units. Still, some nights I lie in bed and swear I hear it, the whisper through the floorboards I no longer have. She stayed. She stayed too long. Not because it's real anymore, but because part of me still believes Jenna stayed behind. And maybe Sarah did too. Grief can become a room you never leave. It sneaks in through the quiet, seeps into the walls and makes you forget how to live outside it. But healing means walking out, even when the wind bites and the road ahead is empty. Some people stay too long in places not meant for the living. The bravest thing you can do is leave before the echoes become your own. It's funny what you notice when everything else in your life has collapsed. After I ended things with Devon, 7 years, 1 apartment, 2 nearly signed marriage licenses, I couldn't breathe in Portland anymore. Every corner store, every sidewalk musician reminded me of who we were supposed to be. So I packed what I could into my beat-up Honda and drove south. By the time I hit Ashland, it was raining hard and didn't look like it planned to stop. I found echo pines from a paper flyer stapled to a bulletin board in a laundromat. It looked half abandoned, tucked behind a tangle of moss-covered oaks and a cracked concrete driveway. The rent was suspiciously cheap, but I didn't care. I needed quiet, needed to be somewhere I didn't exist in other people's memories. My unit, 2B, was dated but clean. The apartment next to mine, 2A, had a rusted padlock on the outside and windows that had been painted over in a thick coat of green. I asked the landlord Dale about it when he handed over my keys. "No one in there," he said. "Storage unit now. Left like that since 2020. Pandemic thing." I nodded, grateful for the silence. Or so I thought. For the first few weeks, life fell into a tolerable routine. I worked remotely on freelance design jobs, ordered food more than I should have, and spent too much time staring out my rain-streaked window. It was the kind of isolation I thought I wanted. Predictable, dull, numbing. But then, little things began to slip through the cracks. At exactly 3:14 a.m. each night, a soft knock echoed through the wall between my kitchen and 2A. Always 3 slow taps. Then silence. I chalked it up to pipes or old building quirks, until I started smelling lavender, faint but distinct, drifting under the wall. Sometimes it came with the quiet whir of what sounded like a pencil sharpener, always around the same time, always from the other side of the wall that should have been empty. One night, half asleep, I pressed my ear to the kitchen wall. For a long moment, nothing. Then came the faintest sound. A scrape, like chalk being dragged across tile, followed by a woman humming a lullaby just slightly off-key. The tune started sweet, but turned into something slow and cracked, like it was slipping out of rhythm with the world. I started recording audio journals, nothing dramatic, just a voice memo on my phone left running overnight on the kitchen counter, mic aimed at the wall. I wasn't expecting anything. I just wanted to prove to myself it was nothing, just grief playing tricks. Or my anxiety, tightening its grip again. But on the 5th morning, I played it back and froze. There was a voice. A woman's, faint and brittle, whispering something again and again. "Not yet, not yet." Still drawing. Followed by a soft tapping, like nails against glass. I didn't sleep the next night, or the one after that. A few days later, I found all the frames on my gallery wall flipped upside down. I thought maybe it was an earthquake, but nothing else had moved. Only the frames. And the only nail that had fallen out was the one closest to 2A's wall. I found it on my pillow. I texted Dale, asked again about the green-painted unit. He didn't reply for a full day. "Still sealed. No one's in there," he finally responded. I didn't believe him. The last straw came a week later. I came home after picking up groceries, and there on my doormat was a pencil. Short, bitten at both ends. Taped to it was a torn sketchbook page, one of those smooth ivory sheets I'd recognize anywhere. On it, drawn in heavy graphite, was a sketch of me, my own face, eyes wide, mouth open like I'd just realized something too late. I stared at it for a long time. The lines were rushed but skillful, familiar even, like someone who had drawn hundreds of faces before this one. I marched to Dale's unit and banged until he opened the door. "You need to tell me what's in 2A, I said. He looked at me for a long time before sighing. She was an artist, Callie, lived there before the pandemic, real quiet type, used to spend hours drawing in the community garden before it dried up. Then one day, she stopped answering calls. Last anyone saw her was at the art store. I waited. When the cops finally forced the door open, the place was covered in sketches, hundreds of them, all of herself, and in every one she looked less human, more warped. They never found her, just the drawings. We locked the unit, left it, never repainted it. The green was hers, her last project. I packed that night. I left most of my gear behind, printer, backup drives, even my desk. I didn't want to take anything that had touched the wall between us. I drove to my brother's place in Eugene, showed up at 3 a.m. He didn't ask many questions. Now I work from cafes. I live with people. I draw less, and when I do, it's with the lights on and the music loud. But sometimes I'll be sketching half-focused and hear it under the hum of conversation, a pencil dragging too slow, a voice just beneath hearing range. Not yet, not yet, still drawing. Sometimes, the space we seek for healing holds its own ghosts, the kind not easily seen or named. Isolation can seem like a refuge, but when left unchecked, it can blur the line between memory and haunting. Don't ignore the quiet, and never turn your back on the wall next door.